we're all in this together. We all are living the human condition. We're souls, and we also have ego minds. And our only job is to help each other remember who we are and love each other and serve our love to each other. Because I need your help and I need your freedom so I can be more free. Thank you for listening, because even listening means that, we're connecting in some way.
My name is Francesca Phillips, and you're listening to the Good Space Podcast, a show where we help you find peace and power in work, relationships, and intuition. Welcome to the Good Space Podcast, where today we are going to speak to a very special guest, Peggy Fitzsimmons. Peggy Fitzsimmons, PhD, has helped many people get their houses in order through intensive decluttering. She also is a former staff of the Omega Institute and was a consulting producer on Oprah Winfrey's Emmy-winning TV series Super Soul Sunday. Awesome, so cool. And in her new book, Release, Create a Clutter-Free and Soul-Driven Life, she shares spiritual and practical insights with readers who want to free themselves from clutter and live in alignment with their true soul nature. Peggy, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Oh, hi, Francesca. Thank you so much for having me. It's like a lovely little connection we made to the universe.
I know it is. It is. And I don't even know how it happened, but I just remember it was either you or like someone on your team messaged me. And for some reason, something about like you and your book and just the idea of releasing clutter just resonated so much. And I feel really lucky that we get to have you today.
Oh, thank you.
I'm sure everyone listening has experienced some form of clutter in their life. They know how heavy it can feel or annoying it can feel. The thing I love about you and your book, especially, is that you take this on a whole other level, like a spiritual level. So I would love to hear from you what clutter means to you and why you felt called to this work specifically.
Well, I've been helping people declutter, it seems like forever. I was always the friend who would come over and say, hey, do you want to clean out the garage? And I think it's partly because I'm a Virgo and I like things, orderly and beautiful in their ways. And, but as I did the work, I really realized that it was all connected. Clutter is just the physical representation of thoughts and emotions and energies. So when you work with someone in their home, you see everything right there in front of you. And so that helped me to write the book in the way that I did, including all forms of clutter, not just the stuff in your closet, but the stuff in your emotional closet, your mental closet, that kind of thing.
That's incredible. And especially to see that thread in everyone that you helped, that's really, really cool. Have you ever seen the opposite where maybe someone had so little and it was more like a scarce energy? Is that even a thing?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that can definitely be a thing. I mean, our culture's pointed towards pointing fingers at the hoarders, right? Oh, look at that person with all their stuff. And I frankly believe we're all hoarders, right? We all hold on to things that don't necessarily serve us. It's just a matter of degrees. But I think holding on to another form of not enough, right? Like scarcity, lack, is another kind of manifestation of this ego mind. And that's kind of what I do in the book. I kind of differentiate between our soul nature and our ego nature. And that's kind of why this book is really a book about the soul and the ego, masquerading as a clutter book. So people who pick it up just for physical clutter find more in there than they bargain for. And so that's kind of fun.
I do have some thoughts on or questions on the ego-based thoughts and then the soul nature, which is so fascinating. But the cool thing that I want to point out is that in the book, you said most people think decluttering is about forcing themselves to get rid of things against their will. What actually happens in the process is that things let go of us, which I don't hear many people say that. And I remember being in that position too, where I think, decluttering means I have to let go of things. So can you explain your philosophy around that?
Yeah, definitely. I believe that most people, when they even think about dealing with clutter in their lives in any form, and that usually happens when people are facing some sort of transition, right? So you're moving out of your house, you're going through a divorce, you're changing jobs, these kinds of things kind of bring up a desire to move differently in the world, clear space, bring everything into present time, kind of move on into what's happening now instead of the past, right? So whenever we're faced with those kinds of situations, it's a bit of an impetus to clear, to release, to get rid of some things. But people feel like they have to force themselves. It's a big drudgery. It's a big dread. It's like, oh my God, I got to deal with what's in my closet. I can't face it. Shut the door. Don't deal. I look at decluttering as a release party, and I always say that to my clients, like, I'll be there on this day for a release party, because I believe if you're clear about who you really are as a soul, right? Then when you look at everything in your environment and you say, okay, does this contribute to who I really am and what my soul's longing for right now, right? Maybe it's to feel more spacious or feel more freedom or be more efficient in your work or be more present for your kids, any number of things that the soul call is coming. And we all have these soul calls, and you have your own right now, I'm sure, because we just do. But in that situation, when we start to look around at everything in our lives and ask, okay, is this in alignment with who I really am? Does this help me be who I really am? Then the things that don't match up, that aren't in alignment, they kind of reveal themselves. And all of a sudden you go, oh, I don't need that. And it is ready to release you. So that's kind of how I see the process.
It kind of makes sense when you put it that way, because how can I know if I should keep something unless I have like that vision or that idea? And I can see how not really taking even just the space, like even a couple extra minutes to ask yourself that, it would just be like, okay, let me close the door and avoid it. And it really does help clarify things. And kind of going along with that, I do love that in your book, you only talk about physical clutter in a chapter towards the end of the book. You speak about mental, emotional, energetic, and relationship clutter first in different chapters. And so I know there's a purpose behind that. So do you have anything to say on why that order happened that way?
Yeah. Well, the book kind of wrote me, as books tend to do. So that just seemed to be the way to lay it out, because they're all connected. So it feels, you could say it's linear, but it's really not. It's all circular, but you have certain thoughts. So the ego kind of approach to life has a certain mindset, which is I'm not enough, you're not enough, and there's not enough. So when you're in that state of mind, you're going to have certain thoughts, every day, right? Jealous thoughts, not good enough thoughts, sad feelings, shame, jealousy, right? These are the emotional clutter. We're surrounded by energies that are, pushing, striving, succeeding, competing. These are all energies of an ego-based culture. And then that affects how you're engaging in relationship, right? If you're pushing and resisting and wanting and needing, and then all of a sudden you start to hold on to things in your physical environment because they make you feel safe, or they make you feel like you have a place in this world, and look how much I've accomplished, and look at all these beautiful, expensive things. And so they're all connected. But I think that disarray in your mind or in your emotions, or in your energies reflects itself in your home, and vice versa.
That makes so much sense. And someone in the Good Space community, I don't know how long ago, actually asked if a city can hold an energy that affects you. And absolutely, because you are from New York and New York City, I feel it all the time. And so I'm actually curious, because you also mentioned in your book about witnessing. So when you're in a city or in an environment that does have that cluttered, frenetic type feeling, is it through witnessing that you can kind of live in peace with it? Or do you have certain steps or processes that you use to shield yourself essentially?
Yeah, I think the role of the witness, which just means kind of noticing your experience all the time, noticing your thoughts, your feet, your emotions, your energies, how you're engaging in relationships, who you're in relationship with, right? The physical elements of your home when you walk in that front door and you look around and what does that look like? How does that feel? It's the same process when you're living in the city, because I love New York. I'm from New York. It's like I land on that ground and I'm home, right? But I can't live in New York. because for me, it's the frenetic energy of it is so strong. It's awesome to drop into, but it would take a lot of work for me personally to be able to maintain that. So for anyone living in a city like that, or any environment, whether it's, your own home with your family or whatever things are going on, right? Or an apartment building. I mean, I think we have to find ways to kind of observe the energy, connect with the parts of it that feed our soul, and then also retreat when we need to restore, to ground, to replenish. So that might be, walking in all those beautiful parks in New York, being with nature. A friend of mine once said to me, there's so much nature in the city and you don't realize it, but it's really true. Next time you go for a walk today or later or something, just check it out, bird sounds and squirrels everywhere and tree, there's a lot happening, water. And so to me, those are some things that kind of help balance the energy, getting quiet, getting in a cocoon-like space for a minute to regroup, and then kind of being with what is. Sometimes resisting what is what makes the energy harder. So, you're walking down the street in New York and it's so loud and the cabs are beeping and everyone's rushing at me. It's like, well, that's what it is. So if you can kind of open yourself and let it flow with you and around you, that's very different than pushing up against it, And mindfulness helps us do that, because mindfulness helps us see, witnessing helps us see. It's like being an owl in a tree, right? You're just watching, just watching.
I loved listening to you explain that, because resistance is so, at least that's been my struggle, is like resisting what is. And you're absolutely right. You just have to kind of submit to what it is, but then also, like you said, retreat. And you just said it so beautifully. And which brings me to some of the methods that you talk about in your book as well, of how to ground yourself and how to get in touch with that energy that you have, and the energy you also talked about. Sometimes we can take on energy that's not ours. And I'm excited to talk to you about the colors and the rhythms, which we'll get to. I thought that was the coolest thing, but I wanted to ask you specifically on chapter 8, emotional clutter. So that's the one that hit me the hardest, because that's been my focus for the last few months. And I know a lot of people in the Good Space community are also, dealing with emotional work. And in that chapter, you share 5 reasons it's hard to give up ego-based thoughts. Then you share 6 questions we can ask ourselves to filter what we're feeling, basically, and to basically release the emotional suffering is what I'm trying to say. And the 6 questions are: does this emotion contribute to my soul intention? Is it beautiful? Is it useful? Does it love me back? Is it in present time? Does it have a sacred place to live? Does it help me to serve my love to the world? Help me serve my love to the world. Okay, so that might be more than 6. I might have counted that wrong. But regardless, I marked it. And so I was curious, do you need to filter through all of those? And does it need to pass all of them, or only a few? Or is your purpose that by asking those questions to yourself, you begin to feel if it's good or not? And so it's not so much about the answers you receive.
Yeah. It's a good question. It's like the questions I have in the book are kind of the roadmap for people who are going through any kind of clutter. Those questions stand up against any kind of clutter. But in terms of emotional clutter, I think the main thing is let me just kind of break it down a little bit. To me, our true nature is that we are souls first and foremost. Okay. We're here on this planet temporarily. We have one purpose, which is to serve our love to the world. That's what you're doing with this podcast. That's what I'm doing with the book, right? Where people have businesses, whatever we're all doing, right? We're serving our love somehow. And the soul is eternal. It's wise. It's loving. The soul knows that we're all connected to each other and to everything else. The soul knows joy, appreciation, gratitude, right? So that's our true nature. Now, we also have this ego aspect of ourselves, which is kind of the image we construct of ourselves, right? So it's, our needs, our beliefs, our possessions, the roles we play. And the ego's main concern is self-preservation, success, survival, right? We all have both of these aspects, right? It's the human condition. We're souls with an ego mind. And the way I write about in the book is who's at the wheel at any given time? Is your soul at the wheel, or is your ego at the wheel? Are you awake at the wheel? Or are you asleep at the wheel? I just want to kind of explain all that because it connects to emotional clutter. Because if your ego is at the wheel and you're in this mindset of I'm not enough, you're not enough, there's not enough, you're going to hang out in certain emotions. You're going to hang out in fear. You're going to hang out in anxiety. You're going to hang out in anger, jealousy, resentment, guilt. I mean, these are kind of the emotions of the ego mind. Now, are they wrong to have? No, we're humans. We have these feelings. We have them all the time. We can move in and out of them like that, right? So I'm just inviting people to understand that, yes, you want to invite every emotion when it comes to your door. You want to invite it in. You want to know it. You want to welcome it. You don't want to push it aside. You don't want to be afraid of it. You don't want to be afraid to cry because you'll never stop. And I think during this COVID time, whatever ego-based emotion we tend to hang out in is highlighted right now. If you're anxious sort, you're probably feeling a lot more anxious than normal. If you're a depressed sort, you might feel more depressed than normal. You see what I mean? Because the whole world is in their ego emotions because it's a scary time. And it's a lot of change and no one knows what's going on. So all emotions are valid. All emotions are real. All emotions are part of us. But the ego emotions are different than the soul's emotions. And the soul's emotions are joy and appreciation and gratitude and peace and contentment. This is our natural state. And we get confused thinking that the other emotions are our natural state, and they're not. They're an altered state. But we're used to them and they're familiar. So tell me what you know about that, because you resonated with this part of the book for a reason. So
absolutely everything you said resonated with me as well. But yeah, I think it reminds me of when you explained how cutting off emotions actually cuts off both extremes it carries, which I have never thought of it that way, because I was the person that would resist. I was the person that would try to avoid or like damp down certain things because I should just focus on positive, but not actually sitting with it and letting the experience happen, which is something I've really been focused on these last few months. And it has released so much trauma that I have had in my body that I didn't actually know was there and that I didn't actually know wasn't dealt with. Like there was certain things from like long ago that I thought I had taken care of. And then when I actually learned to just be okay with whatever emotions come, that's when things started clearing out even more. And it was really crazy. But I love how you explained that basically loneliness carries the energy of belonging. Anger carries the energy of recreation. And I never thought of it that way. It's almost as if the heavy aspects of an emotion are there to motivate us into action to receive the lighter aspects. So like as humans, we tend to put things in boxes. Again, it's the ego-based thinking. We put things in boxes, we label them, we make it simpler for ourselves to process things. And so I'm almost like, maybe emotions aren't as simple as saying loneliness, anger, happiness, joy. Like what if it's just an orb that has a spectrum and it's just like one continuous thing? I don't know if that makes sense, but that's kind of what it cracked open in me.
Yeah. And when you cracked open, when you said, okay, I'm going to welcome who's at the door instead of pushing away, damping down, word you said, which is people do, avoiding, and all that stuff was kind of locked in your body closet, right? It's like it was lodged in your body. It has nowhere to go. And so many people are so afraid to be with their emotions, so afraid what it means to be vulnerable. They think vulnerability is weakness when in fact it's strength. Many people are dealing with all levels of trauma and, trauma to me being something frozen in time, in trauma, your emotions, your mind, your being is frozen in a particular time. It might be a time when you were little, something bad happened. When you were an adult, something bad happened. Anytime something bad happened, but it's a freezing, it's a fear. It's like, oh no, I'm not letting this happen again. I'm not going to be vulnerable. I'm not going to get, caught out in any way. And then we put on the armor, the emotional armor. So I love hearing you talk about it. And I think this orb idea is interesting. It's kind of like we are in this constant shifting state. Like if I told you right now, hey, guess what? I forgot to mention you won the lottery. I've got the check. It's right here. I'm sending it to you. Woo, you'd go to some emotional state, right? I could also tell you something terrible happened and then you go to another state. It's constant states. And our job is just to keep staying the witness, observing them, welcoming them, not being fooled that whatever state we're in, loneliness, anger, resentment, it's not all of who we are. It's part of who we are, but it's not all of who we are. And it doesn't need to be at the wheel for longer than it takes to notice it, love it, bring it in, say, oh my God, loneliness, you're here again. It's okay. I know you want to belong. You feel lonely because you want to fit in. You want to feel connected to community. And that's what it's about at the end of the day. It's like ego-driven emotions are actually linked to soul emotions, as you gleaned from the book and pointed out for yourself. So I love to hear what people resonate with in the book because it's always different based on where you are, So thanks.
Yeah. And I feel like if I come back and read it, a certain amount of time down the road, I might connect with something different. Like I feel like it's something you can continually come back to because you actually give tangible exercises and different perspectives through each chapter. So like, I feel like in the future, I'll definitely open it up again and be like, okay, what can I do for energy or for relationship or, whatever it is that I want to focus on, which is really cool. And I know that you yourself have experienced trauma, and I'm sure you've had to work through trigger responses and all of that. So, you mentioned in the very, very beginning, I believe it was, about feeling safe. Like when you experience trauma, often people can put unsafety goggles on and they view the world as unsafe or their environment is unsafe. And so for anyone that maybe is listening and they're like, you know what, getting rid of emotional clutter sounds great, but maybe they have a trigger response. What would be like the first step or the thing that you would recommend to start feeling safe again within yourself, within, whatever it is they need to feel safe in?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think that anyone who's been through anything, this is a difficult world, it's a difficult planet to be on and we're on it temporarily, but we're on it. And I think that the first thing I think about trauma, which I wish someone had explained to me when I was younger and growing up and everything, is just that like, we're all bigger than just our emotions, our experiences, our personality. We're bigger than that. And all of these experiences are part of our soul's growth somehow. And you can't know how until later, right? Because it shows up in the rearview mirror. It's not available to you right there. And one of my good friends, who's one of the top spiritual teachers in the world, is a woman named Byron Katie, who speaks a lot about things happen. They don't happen to you. They happen for you. And that's deep and that's true. But if you're hanging on to a trauma experience in a way that's closing you off from that truth, it's kind of like, you don't want to hear that. I remember someone said that to me a long time ago about, having been molested as a young child by a neighbor, kind of like, well, if you want to let go of this, you just have to blah, blah, blah. It was like, okay, screw you, but he was right. But at the time I couldn't hear it, because it felt like he was negating my experience. He was minimizing my experience. He was telling me to get over it. Like you said before, Francesca, about people do this, I call it a spiritual bypass, right? It's like, oh, I'm just going to think positive thoughts and everything's okay. It's a very common thing in the spiritual growth world. And to me, it's like, no. We have to be in all the muck of being human. We have to be willing to go deep into those places of trauma, emotional discord, all kinds of things. Because once we enter them that way, then there's a real chance to integrate them and get the help we need to integrate them. It's not just about me saying, hey, you're bigger than that. And that experience happened for you, not just to you. Okay. Well, wait a minute. I'm still having trigger responses. I'm still having, body things going on. Well, that's where you then are open to get all the help you need. Put that cocoon around you to help yourself heal. And also know that they happen all the time. You know, I had it on the way to this. I came here to do this podcast, and, you know, I hear a song on the radio, brings up an emotion about my dad who just passed a few months ago. Then I come here and there's an ambulance, you know, on the side of the street. And I'm like right back in that moment. And I have to kind of be with that. I'm like, okay, you know, so it's always happening for all of us all the time. It doesn't really go away, you know, you just work with it.
Well, I'm sorry for your loss and can't imagine how painful that must have felt. I think it's beautiful how you put it, that we're always going to be working through stuff, experiencing pain. And it's more, what I hear is it's more about having the safe space or the safety of tools to properly process it in the moment. And so that actually, this is perfect. Like, you were literally speaking everything, like exactly segueing into the next question. So I was curious, of all the tools that you share in your book, what are some of your favorites? Like, what do you go to? What's in your toolbox when you're working through, triggered responses, or even just not, like you're trying to release clutter?
Yeah. Always about remembering the big picture, you know, always that's the safest cocoon to land in when you can, you know, it's like, oh, there's a bigger story operating here. I am on a soul's path here, and I just have to keep showing up. I mean, that's the main thing. And also that whatever shows up, that I show up for, is here to help me somehow. And I'm going to have to be with it in ways that maybe I think I can't, you know, maybe are too hard, maybe are too sad, maybe are too frightening. But if I keep staying in my own shoes as a soul, as a person who knows that, you know, my job is to be here to serve my love to the world. So how am I going to do that? I got to be present. I got to be willing to be in those kind of places, because that's where other people need help too, right? We all need the same help. We all need reminders of who we are and that we're going to be okay and that we are okay. So those are big ones. And then a lot of grounding stuff as well, you know, just letting energy run through, coming back to myself. You know, nature's a big resource for me that way.
Yeah. And same for me. I feel like Central Park is a must for me.
Oh, it's a must. It's medicine, you know,
yeah.
Vitamin N is medicine. And for anyone listening, please, please, please go out. Even if you think you are out a lot, go out in a different way. Go out knowing that nature is going to teach you everything about your soul. It teaches you everything. Eternality, seasons, letting go, right? It's all right there in front of you. So we have to, again, go be with it. That's different than walking through 90 miles an hour through the park with your headphones on your phone call. That means sitting on one of those rocks, you know, those Central Park rocks, nothing like them. Those rocks have been there a long time. Seen a lot of things. Go befriend one.
I know. I love that. And actually, there's this tree in the park that someone put a sign on that says, go ahead and hug me, or like hug something about hugging the tree. And I did it once and I was like, I love this. I did hug the tree. And you're absolutely right about being in nature versus going through it, or like still kind of having that busy mindset. And I remember the other day I was sitting on a bench, and just for 5 minutes, I just sat and I observed and I listened to the birds, like you said, and I just watched how the flow of nature was. And it was much slower than I was used to living. And you're right. Like, if you just observe even for 5 minutes, you're like, wow, everything is much slower. They all work together. Like, you start noticing these things, and it just like locks you into that energy as well. And it's so rewarding. I love it.
And it literally locks you into that energy because we're energetic beings, and the earth has a certain energy frequency. We begin to resonate. Our heartbeat kind of gets in alignment with the heartbeat of nature. And that's exactly what you saw when you notice it was just a little bit slower. People are rushing. You can see the beauty of people rushing through, but it's slower. And you can get that looking out your window, being in the woods, sitting with a flower. You know, some people live in cities, you know, they got to go find nature a little more than, you know, someone else who lives on a farm. But it's really true that we can heal ourselves a lot by being with that. Like I always say, Mother Nature's like the unconditional mother we never had, right? Because everyone has issues with their moms, right? Oh. But Mother Nature's right there waiting for us to show up and be with her, I think.
I agree. I 100% agree. And as someone who struggles with anxiety, I feel like the grounding exercises really have been a saving grace for me this year, and the ones you share too. And then I feel like nature grounds me. And yeah, it's if you're struggling with anxiety or anything that's like high, quick, fast paced, like it's almost like you're like floating and you can't get that sense of grounding, then you definitely want to get this book so you can get some really easy. I mean, they're really simple too. Like the things you share, you could plug into it in a second, do it for like a few minutes, and you'll already, like, even just reading the book, I felt like coherence and like I felt energy resonating. So like even just reading it made a difference.
I think too, I just want to say something about anxiety in particular, because we're all dealing, we all have that. But anxiety, when we're in a state of anxiety, we are in the clutches of the ego mind, which hangs out in the past and in the future. Okay. So our ego minds are making us have thoughts that are, what just happened? What's going to happen? I just did this. I should have done that. What if this happens? Oh my God, and back and forth. And that's what's going on in that mindset all the time. The soul is more at home in present time, in the present moment. So when you feel anxiety, it's actually a key that you are in future time. You're thinking about something that hasn't happened that you think may happen, and you're trying to prepare yourself for it. It's like when you get off the train, in New York, you get off the train, they have a thing that says mind the gap, right? Because if you look too far up those stairs, you're going to slip between the platform. And that's how I think about anxiety. It's like you mind the gap. You're in a gap in time. If you're anxious, you're in future time. You're not right here. So even just saying, hold on, I'm present right now. I'm here right now. Take a breath. Feel your feet on the ground. Feel your pelvis on the chair. Any kind of acknowledgement or affirmation to yourself. I'm safe. I'm okay. When we're in the present, we're safe. That's when we feel most safe, which ties back to the trauma. See, it's all connected.
It is all connected. And actually, my friend is getting certified in this breathing technique. And so I'm one of her like test subjects.
Lucky
it's actually
you.
been like changing my life. I know, I'm so lucky. I literally went into it thinking, because I'm always skeptical. I'm like, let me see I don't know if this is going to work. But I just can't believe how much it's unlocked in me. And like you said, breathing, and like, I didn't notice how like tight my jaw is whenever I breathe in. I didn't notice how little I was actually breathing in. And so those exercises just like revealed so much. And I think you're right. Just like breathing and focusing in the moment changes so much and gets you present. And it's so powerful.
Yeah. Because when you're in other time, if you're in past time, where are you? You're in regret. You're in, I shoulda, woulda, shoulda, coulda. And then if you're in future time, it's fear and anxiety and what if, and our culture's oriented that way. That's other part of it. So not only are we ourselves in our own ego minds, but we're in a whole collective of minds that are thinking that way, and you can see it's happening more and more, that you can notice when that's operating. So it's like you're walking, you're like a salmon swimming upstream when you're trying to be with these more truthful aspects of soul nature, like breathing and presence. That's not what the herd's doing, and our job, I think, as light workers and people trying to, heal and transform, is to be more in those places when we can, acknowledge when we can't, and just stay committed to our own freedom and our own knowing of who we really are. That's the big gift in all this for me.
100%. And I've noticed that when you do get yourself into that space and you do start releasing more, other people notice it and it starts to affect their energy. And I know, was it Carrie Sukoff? I'm trying to think if it was The Seed of the Soul, or no, it was Force versus Power or something like that. I don't know. It's the black and white book, but it's about energy vibrations and how higher energy converts lower energy. And so I always keep thinking the more that we can get into that clear resonant space, you're actually converting energy of other people around you. And I've seen it happen where like when I'm in a good space, like people are attracted to me or like opportunities. And it's like a really cool experience. So it's almost like by getting yourself aligned, you're also helping other people. So
absolutely. And I think it's really important to say that the way to truly get to that vibration is not through avoiding all the human stuff. The way you get to, like, when you have a really good cry, or you get really sad, and then you kind of come through it, and then you just feel like you're seeing through new eyes, your body's relaxed. It's like, you're back to your natural state. Remember, presence, peace, contentment, letting go, cooperation. That's the true state of our souls. And we have to keep inviting ourselves and everybody else to remember that.
Yeah, I love that. So if you're listening and this is a goal of yours, you're incredible. And you're incredible, Peggy, for doing this work and really being a voice and a pioneer, because we need people like you to guide us and show the way. And I think it's so incredible. The one last thing I wanted to talk to you about, which I'm like so excited because I'm all about visuals, and I know a lot of people in the good space are as well. So in the book, you talk about how our individual energies have its own color and rhythm, and how we can use that to ground ourselves or to notice when we're carrying foreign energy. So I would love if you could explain that to those listening. And yeah, I just want to talk to you about that.
Yeah. Well, first, all energy credit for any of the things I know about energy goes to my teacher, named aptly Francesca McCartney. She's in Marin in San Francisco area and has amazing energy classes and trainings for people online. So if anyone's looking for that kind of help, Francesca McCartney, just check her out. But, energetically, it's like we're walking around in an energy bubble, an energy skin around us. And that's our sacred space, our sacred energetic space. So you can imagine yourself standing in a bubble or in an egg, perhaps, and you feel that bubble, above your head, say 12 inches above your head, 12 inches in front of you, 12 inches to either side, 12 inches behind you, and then say 12 inches down into the ground, right? So your bubble is you're engaged with the ground as well. And that's your bubble. That's how you're moving through space. And all of us have an energetic bubble, and it's our job to keep it clean and keep it full of our energy, our best energy. And so the way you can kind of get to know about your own bubble, and I talk about it in the book, is kind of taking some time to feel into this bubble and see what color is the color that fills your bubble, right? Some people are yellow people, some people are blue people, green people. It doesn't matter. It's intuitive, right? Part of this whole point about releasing some of this ego stuff is because the soul is about intuition and knowing, right? So when you get quiet and you sit with yourself and say, what is the color of my bubble? What is the color of energy that feels most like me? Something will come to you. And that's a way you can practice keeping your bubble that color. It's when you go through life and it's getting splattered with everybody else's different colors.
I'm curious, what is your color?
Oh, well, the colors change.
Right? They change.
Yeah,
oh, okay.
Sure. So your color today is different than it might be 3 months or a month, or, that's why it's all intuitive. Like every day you want to just check in. So I've had colors ranging from kind of a sea foam, that sea foam green color, to a turquoise type of color. I tend towards the blues. But if I know that I'm walking into a situation and I want to feel full of love, I might run my own color, and then I might run some pink through it, right? Because pink to me connects to love. But again, it's all particular to the person. So I don't want to put any agendas. I want people to trust their own intuition, Yeah, we have a certain color. We have a certain rhythm. Some people have a boom, boom, boom kind of drum beat, right? Of the way they kind of move. Some people are faster, right? Ba, 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 ba. We all have different rhythms. So it's like you're feeling into the color and the rhythm of your own energy. And when you can feel into that and know it, then you can know when you don't feel that. That means that somehow you've been infiltrated, perhaps, or you've just gotten a little lax in taking care of your own way, your own bubble, your own vibe, so to speak. And it matters. It matters a lot.
Oh, that's so exciting. I think when I first did the exercise, mine was like a red, but it was more like the smoldering embers in a fire red. So it's not like bright red, but it's more like a deeper orangey kind of feeling red. And then I think my energy has always been like a low throb. Like it's almost like I can feel it washing over me, but it's not like a drum beat per se. And so I'm curious to see how over time it changes and all of that. So I think it's super helpful.
Yeah, it's a pulse, it's a vibe and a pulse. And when you're full of your own energy, as my Francesca McCartney calls it, she said, when you fill yourself with yourself, then that's protection, right? Because it's like walking through the streets of New York and everybody's in black and white, black jackets, black hats, how it is in New York. And then you're walking through in royal blue, right? or campfire orangey red. It's like you stand out, it's like your energy is different and it's going to bring different things to you. And that's the fun, that's the magic of it. It's like, ooh, let's see what happens when I'm really in my own energetic vibe of who I really am.
Yeah, absolutely. And it makes it tangible. I feel like for a beginner or someone who maybe doesn't know how to connect to the intuition, that's such a accessible way of understanding it. So it's great.
It's all intuition, and it's all also like energy matters. Like, so even if you have a closet full of stuff that you never look at, or a basement or a drawer, and you just shut it and you think, oh, it's over there. It doesn't affect me. Count on it. It affects you. And a lot of times people are upset, they're sad, they're depressed. And it's like, oh, wait a minute. This might not even be your own energy. This might be the energy of your friends or your partner or your parent, or your brother or your boss. So it's like, you have to really be able to discern. And I think quieting down and feeling in like you did with your experience from the book, that's what it's all about. Trust your intuition. You know better than I know about you. We all know better.
Do you have any rituals? Like once you notice you're carrying someone else's energy, is there like a ritual or an affirmation that you say to clear it out? Or is it just the witnessing of it that releases it?
Well, I think noticing it and affirming it and, acknowledging it helps a lot, because you kind of say it to yourself. But I think it's like I say in the book, it's like if you found a pair of sunglasses that didn't belong to you at your house or in your car, you give it back. Because we all need our energy. We need to be in full possession of our energy. So we like to take it from other people or splatter some of ours their way, like to help us feel better, or to ground ourselves through other people maybe, or to dump our anger or upset, about the boyfriend that just broke up with you, or the boss who's, all the reasons we are constantly energetically exchanging, So it's not good, bad, or different, but it's like when you're driving and your windshield's got all that bug splatter on it. It's like that can happen to your bubble, so to speak. And sometimes it can actually penetrate. So yeah, so acknowledging it and saying, you know what, I'm going to give this energy back. I'm going to reaffirm my own rhythm and flow and feel it. Put on some music maybe that gets you into that state. Just go under the shower and let it wash your energy bubble, like when you're doing your morning hygiene, do energetic hygiene as well. Stand under that shower and let it drain energy that's not you into the drain and down off of you. There's all kinds of little fun ways to play with energy.
So Peggy, you are so amazing. Thank you for taking the time to chat with us. And aside from getting Peggy's book released, I know our audience also likes to know other things that you recommend or that you like reading or watching, or something that they can support their journey further, other than, your book, obviously, which we will make sure is linked in the show notes so they can easily buy it.
No, that's great. I would also like to say, in terms of my stuff, I do have a website, peggyfitzsimmons.com, that has a lot of articles and podcasts and things that I've done. So it's kind of, free, accessible content for people, for yourself or someone else who you might want to point that way. If you can't afford the book or something like that. I also just did the book. I had a narrator do an audiobook, so it's now available. Which is super fun. I found this magical narrator named Adele Cabot from LA, who's just beautiful. She loved the book, so it was a perfect collaboration. So that's available. In terms of other people's work, oh my God, there's been so many, but I think one of the books I brought forth to Super Soul back in the day was Michael Singer's Untethered Soul, which is a gorgeous, gorgeous gem of a book. And, I had actually originally given it to Oprah to read, and that started that process. And now that book has become ubiquitous. And that's it's one of the things I'm most proud of in an odd sort of way, to have been part of ushering that book, because it's just gorgeous. So that's a great one. Anyone's dealing with emotional stuff, Elizabeth Lesser, a good friend of mine, who also did an endorsement for my book, but she wrote a beautiful book called Broken Open, which really can help people to get through some of grief and loss and things like that. So those would be two for sure ones, I would say.
That's amazing. The Untethered Soul is probably one of my favorite books of all time. So thank you for doing that. And wow, that must have felt so special finding it. First of all, like, you were definitely the vehicle for that. That's amazing. And I feel like your book is definitely like in that, you know what I mean? Like, it's in that space now with all those other amazing books. And I think it can help so many people. And I'm so happy to hear it's on audio, because this would be so great to just, experience it by listening to it. I think it's going to be wonderful.
Yeah, I'm really excited about it. And the other thing I would say to people too, another helpful resource is, I used to live and work at the Omega Institute for Holistic Studies, which is up in Rhinebeck, New York. So if you're in New York City, girl, get yourself up there, and we can talk about that another time if you want. But anyway, Omega Institute, eomega.org, all kinds of resources. All the top teachers go there in all disciplines. So whatever your soul's longing for, if you want to do more, you want to be a painter, or you want to be a massage therapist, or you just want some peace and some mindfulness, there's so many resources out there. This is the collective shift that we're all a part of. So the Shift Network is another one. I mean, there's all kinds of free resources, things to listen to just expand into more of the truth about who we are and what we're here for. And it ain't about having houses full of stuff. So
yes, bringing it around so perfectly. I love that. Okay. So if there's one thing that you hope someone, if they only took away one thing, what would you want to say to someone?
We're all in this together. We all are living the human condition. We're souls, and we also have ego minds. And our only job is to help each other remember who we are, and love each other, and serve our love to each other. Because I need your help, and I need your freedom, so I can be more free. And so thank you for listening, because even listening means that, we're connecting in some way. And I'm so grateful about that. That's been the coolest part about the book. It's just like, wow, people are getting something from the book. People of 90-year-old people to 35-year-old people dealing with drug addiction to, it's just gorgeous. And that's because it's reminding us who we are. And we all need that. I need it from you guys, and you need it from me. So we're all in this together.
Well, Peggy, thank you for reminding us of who we are. I'm really grateful that our paths have crossed, and I appreciate you taking the time to chat with me today.
Yes, thank you. And the good space on. Go, go, go.
Thanks.
It's fantastic.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Now it's time for an affirmation. I align with my most authentic self and allow energetic and physical clutter to let go of me. If you found today's tips inspiring or thought-provoking, share it right now on social media, and make sure to tag me at Francesca A. Phillips or at Find Your Good Space, and also weigh in the comment section at findyourgoodspace.com. You can find links in the show notes. And if you have a spiritual or mindfulness problem that you want me to unpack on an upcoming The Good Space episode, or an awesome manifesting story you want to share, give my podcast phone line a ring right now at 917-719-0867. Also, don't forget to download my free morning routine guide. It's what helps me reduce my anxiety, increase productivity, and so much more. The link to everything I mentioned is in the show notes. See you soon.